I want to welcome you all to our first National Academy of Construction Ask Me Anything webinar for the fall 2024 semester. My name is Susan Bogus, and I am an NAC member, and I am the chair of the Gerald May Department of Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering at the University of New Mexico. The theme for our fall 2024 webinar series is entrepreneurship in the design and construction industry. The National Academy of Construction was established in 1999 to recognize our industry leaders. An important purpose of the Academy is to share the collective knowledge and experience of our members to improve the industry. We have established the NAC Ask Me Anything to help transfer knowledge of our members to our next generation of construction leaders, that's you all, with this webinar. I also want to thank our AMA sponsors this year, which are the University of Florida Rinker School of Construction, Arizona State University Del E. Webb School of Construction, and the University of Colorado at Boulder Construction Engineering and Management Program. The format for the Ask Me Anything is simple. Our speakers will make a short presentation about a topic and their perspective on the industry, followed by time to answer your questions. I have your questions that you've submitted, so I will be asking them for you. If you have not already, though, please email your questions to nacama@austin.utexas.edu, and we'll put that in the chat box. One student will win a $500 scholarship, which will be announced at the end of this event. Now on to our speaker for today. Marjorie Perry is President, CEO, and owner of MZM Construction and Management in Newark, New Jersey. She holds a degree in education from Keene College of New Jersey and construction management and MBA degrees from New Jersey Institute of Technology, NJIT. She is also a graduate of the Harvard Business School and the Dartmouth Business School Executive Management Program. Her full-service construction management and transportation company serves a wide range of clients. Fortune magazine recognized her company in its 100 fastest-growing inner-city companies listing in 2018. Marjorie has over 30 years of experience in every aspect of entrepreneurial and consultant work. Her firm has been involved in such major projects as MetLife Stadium, Newark Airport Terminal A, Beth Israel Hospital, and the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey Capital Program. She is a role model for all women of color who entered the design and construction industry. And she is also an adjunct professor at NJIT, and she currently chairs the NJIT Board of Overseers. In 2012, she was inducted into the New Jersey Business Hall of Fame. Marjorie, so happy to have you here today, and welcome.
Thank you, Susan. Thank you so much. And thank you to NAC for having me as the first speaker for the fall season. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'll get started. Welcome, everyone. It is a pleasure and an honor to be with you. I am newly being inducted into NAC in October of 2024. So that's just exciting in itself. And I get to present to you today. So what I'm going to do is drive this conversation so this gets to be more about you than about me. I'm very big on having strong takeaways out of this conversation that we're going to have today. How did I start this? I've been in business now. This will be my 35th year in construction and management. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten up, fallen down, and restarted again. I am a queen of change orders and negotiations. Second, I started out as an educator. My first degree was in education. I really wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a anesthesiologist. I fell in love with that best practices. As life would have it, I was diverted. Mother became ill. And so I had to rethink, can I do medical school and all of that? But meantime, I've taken all of these courses in the sciences. So I went on, taught for a little while, just didn't do it for me. And I'm going to leave this with you. Entrepreneurship is a hit that reminds you that you want to go further than what you might be in a box. And I'll come back to that later. So I worked for a little while in education, did not enjoy that so much. Finally went into corporate America. I worked for United Airlines, Johnson & Johnson, and 3M, which I'm sure you've heard of the big three. And one of the best trainings I could have gotten from those three big houses in the Fortune 100 is how to sell. Because in entrepreneurship, you've got to be a great salesperson, even though you're trying to build a structure at the same time. So lo and behold, I did that for a few years, but I just could not fit into the box. And the box looks like, well, we want you to make this happen, but we're only going to give you a 3% raise at the end of the day. So here's a fun fact for you. I was on one of my flights trying to get Ralph Lauren to come off of Pan Am and TWA and start flying United Airlines to Hong Kong, Tokyo, and Japan, Japan. And so it was my charge to sit with him and sell him on best practices, which we didn't use that language back in the day, but for him to have the best experience on the 767 and to get him to bring his whole crew when he wants to shop for fabrics and put them on United Airlines. Well, here's the gift of that. Back then, you could not fly directly to Asia. You had to lay over in either Seattle or LA or San Francisco. So that meant I had to spend almost 24 hours just with my team that I was working with to talk to them. And every trip I went on with him, and there was 4, he would say, why aren't you running your own business? You know, you have the skills and the oomph and the pizzazz to do that. I said, oh, sir, no. I'm not an entrepreneur. He said, no. It doesn't look like something. It's a feeling. So he says, you know what's going to happen? One day you're going to do so well. By the way, I did get the account. I just want you all to know I did get the account. And they're going to offer you a raise. It's going to be about 3%. And that's how your life is going to go for the next 30 years. And some people, that's perfectly fine. So sure enough, got the account. Everybody was excited at United, and they offered me a 3% raise and moved to Chicago. Well, it's too cold for me to go to Chicago from New Jersey. It's just too cold. It's cold enough here in New Jersey. So I say that to tee up as we go forward in your thinking that you want to not only build your engineering side, think about entrepreneurial side, but how are you going to improve on your sales ability side? Because that is key in order for you to be successful when you run a business. Number 2, the next thing, construction. How did that happen? Well, they offered me the promotion, 3%. I quit right away, came back to New Jersey, and I decided I'm going to open up a consulting business. My first 2 customers were individuals who wanted to start a construction company. Well, I didn't know what slats were. I didn't know what rebar was. I knew nothing about construction, but I understood business. I understood profit and loss. I understood how to go out and do brand equity. I knew how to do marketing. So I said I could get them set up and then I would just back away. No, come in and be a partner. And voila, that's how you have the name of MZM, the Y's of their initials, which is ZM, and me for Marjorie. That's how MZM was birthed. And what I did not know is how important it was to have pre-training before you launch a business and learn off of somebody else's dime and time, because when you go out there, you're on your own. You make your money, you're your own pension, you're your own insurances, you're everything. So as we answer the question today, I want to leave you with these thoughts. 1, do I have what it takes to be a little bit on the risque side? Because entrepreneurship takes a risk. That's number 1. Number 2, do you have strong grit and tenacity? Because most of the time it's quiet, head down, moving forward. And number 3, do you have the right people in place, from good to great Jim Collins, on the bus that's going to help you move your agenda forward? So that's my little opening conversation. We're going to do dialogue now on some of the questions. Susan's going to read them to me. I'm going to answer them best as I can. If there's something that I'm not answering out of your question, Susan, it's okay for them to put it into the chat, or we just stick to the questions?
Yeah, so I believe Sandy has access to that.
Okay. So Sandy, Susan, with that being said, I'm ready to go when you are.
All right. So great. We have a good number of questions. So thank you all for submitting your questions. I won't be able to get to everyone's question. So I'll do my best though to get to the ones we can. So we'll start out with this question from Anita Gamari, and there's a two-part question. The first part you might have answered, what inspired you to start your own construction company? But then also, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were just starting out?
My biggest challenges, and I think I did answer the first part, I just kind of said, nope, United, I'm not going to go to Chicago for a 3% raise. I'm gonna cut it and run and go for it. And I wanted to build generational wealth for my family, my community, and I'm not going to be able to do that on 3% and 5% raises, every now and then, okay? Or am I going to even be on the corporate ladder to go up? So that takes care of that. Challenges. I did not know how difficult it was to be in the construction game, and you're dealing with engineers all day that understand processes and you understand business. I was not aligned. So I had to get aligned with my business process, with the engineering process. My second challenge was that I didn't know women weren't, they didn't want women in the game. I mean, just think about it. You go on a job site, you might see 3 women on a job in the 90s. So here I am on the job with my Timbs on, hard hat on, walking around, and they just ignored me. And number 3, there were people who knew that I did not know and did a lot of damage in my early days of my business. I lost my first $1 million within my first 5 years because I didn't understand the process. And I didn't even know about the upsetment of a woman talking to all of these men. I didn't know that my race might become a factor. I just wanted to do a good job for my client and for the prime that I might be working for. So I had a lot of overcomings to come. I had a choice to file bankruptcy and walk away, or to travel and push through so I could get on the other side. So there were tremendous amount of challenges in the beginning. There was tremendous amount of failure in the beginning, but there was also all of the challenges I was able to flip into some type of success to learn, grow, and can keep going.
That actually ties into this another question here. Lucky Over had a question, and he talked about this sort of, fail, being willing to fail and stuff, but then also has a question: how important has the belief in yourself been on your journey to build a successful company?
And just to be real transparent with you, I thought I had confidence until I came into the construction engineering game. What I found is that I had to really build my internal worthiness, because there's no validation in our game. There's no validation. And if you need to be validated, entrepreneurship is not for you. Nobody's going to do that. So I went in with a strong sense of who I was, but I became really, really, really self-reliant and self-confident. I'd say after about the 7th or 8th year, where I knew what I was doing, I knew what I was talking about, I could present it in an articulated way. I went back to school and worked on my civil here at NJIT, because I needed to be able to talk the same language as the people that I was in the room with. It's nothing like being in a progress meeting. You don't even know how to read the blueprints, okay? So, I had to go back and do all of that, because I lost my 2 partners in 2 years because they could not handle entrepreneurship. And that was supposed to be their role. They couldn't handle it. They went back to 9-to-5 jobs, and the rest is history as I took over. So those were some of the barriers. And I overcame them by continuing education, and I'll talk about that for anybody at whatever level you're on, structural, civil, architectural, you have continuous education. So we'll get into that a little bit deeper from here.
Okay. So let's tie into what you're just talking about with education. So Klaus Kamen had a question about How can one professionally prepare for such an endeavor like entrepreneurships? What steps, like, for example, internships at specific companies, would you recommend?
Well, it depends on your discipline. It always depends on your discipline. One of the things I probably have 3 or 4 mentees every year, and I teach them from the engineering school how to run a business because they're already learning data, they're already understanding calculations. I teach them how to run a business. So that's why they send them here so that they can learn the soft skills of running a business. How do I answer that question? I think that my continuous education into engineering made a difference in my world completely. I think that when I finally reached a pinnacle of understanding, I was able to now take my team to another level because I wasn't even moving my team forward because nobody was able to be on the same page or understand. We were more action-oriented than we were realize-oriented. Internship, they're not going to teach you how to run a business in the beginning. They're going to teach you how to read the blueprints, how to go through your submittals. You're going to learn that from entrepreneurship. So you're going to have to push yourself to take online courses on how to run a business. Because there's a big difference from internship in your discipline, and then there's a big difference in I want to run a business. And I close out the engineering and architectural students here at NJIT because they want to be entrepreneurs. And the biggest thing that they are challenged on, they'll give me an idea and they had the process written down in 40 pages and I mark it all up in red because they didn't deal with the people. Can't run a business without understanding what the client wants. They wrote down what they thought. And it doesn't work that way in entrepreneurship. I have to know what Susan wants. Then I have to lay out the chart for all the stakeholders to know that this is what we're going to do. So that's what I've taught. That's what I teach the interns that I have here. So you're going to have to look for those. That'll be on the side of you, outside of, especially if you're in engineering and construction, you're going to have to look for those people who are already in business because it's hard to do it with the Skanskas or the Turners. They're so big. You can't get all the way to the top level to learn how to run that organization. And that's a very scaled business. Most individuals who are on the call, it's called, you'll be a boutique business where you could get in and get out and service the customer in a very quick and responsible way. So that's what I would lead to if you're interested in running your own business someday.
Okay. How about, here's a question from Morgan Dawkins. What key lessons have you learned in navigating the construction industry as an entrepreneur? And what advice would you give to emerging leaders looking to break into construction management and grow their own business?
Relationships, relationships, relationships. Education, education, education. Never use your gender or who you are in the process when you're building. 3 or 4, offer sometimes to do something for somebody that you notice in an association, like General Contractors Association needed somebody to put together an event. I volunteered to do that because I wanted the relationships. You need the relationship. 90% of business, no matter what it is, it's based on relationships. Who you work with, who you know, how do you contribute, how do you give back? Because if you don't learn to give back and you're just looking to do, then you will not be a successful entrepreneur. It will be a give and take. Your first few years, you may not see the bottom line that you would like to. You'd have to be in IT where you can come up with an app and the whole world goes shopping on Monday morning. That's the quick and fast way if you're an IT specialist and you come up with the perfect app like a Microsoft or Apple. Those are the very rare places that you can go, hire 15 people and just go. And when you even think of an entrepreneur like Amazon, Jeff Bezos worked out of his basement for 15 years. That little blue truck is pulling up in front of my condo every day. But for 15 years, he worked out of his basement. And then the next 15 years, he made no profit because he kept putting it back into the business. So those are the things that you want to take into account as an emerging leader Which side of the aisle do you want to be on? Because it's all about, do you need the support of all of the infrastructure, that's HR, that's accounting, et cetera, or are you going to bring all of that to the table for yourself?
Mhm.
I think I answered that question. If I didn't, put it
Oh,
in the chat. And
no, it's fascinating. It's just wonderful listening. So here's a question, speaking of relationships.
Mhm.
Sunga had a question about, how do you keep a good relationship with various clients over a long period of time? Or do you have any tips for professional networking?
I got to tell you, I probably don't do it as much as I used to in the beginning, but every event that came up and I looked at the list of who was going to be there, I went. Everybody that, and then I would actually scope out what I needed from them. Versus going to 100 meetings, why are you going to a meeting? I just canceled a big meeting for a potential opportunity in Tennessee. And the reason why I canceled it, I don't know who to talk to when I get there. So now I'm out $3,000 going to an event, and I didn't have it planned out. If you don't do anything out planned while you're going, what's the intentionality of who you need to talk to in that room? Because if you don't plan that out, then you'll be spinning your wheels like, hi, how are you? And I got to tell you, in engineering and construction, like one of my interns last year, 2 years ago, she kept her head down and just went to work, process. I finally got her to go do speaking. I have put her in Toastmasters. So when she goes in a room, they remembered her. And that's what you're going to have to push past your comfort zone, because a lot of people don't like networking. But if you're thinking about entrepreneurship, you're going to have to get comfortable with it. There's no getting around that. So that would be the first tip. Really be intentional about who you want to speak to at the event. The second tip would be follow up immediately with them. I can't tell you how much money I spent taking people to lunch just because. Sometimes, and don't always want something in the first 5 minutes. Just say you want to get to know them. And then eventually, what can I do for you? Because most people want something from them because they think they have it, versus you never bother to find out what their pain point and where they're hurting. And how can you fill that gap? So those would be some of my tips for you.
Okay. Here's a question from Jesus Rangel, and his question is, what is the best piece of advice that you could give to a student of color who is excited to become an entrepreneur in the construction industry?
Well, we're living in a very, very challenging time. I never led with my color in business. And I'll tell you a quick story. I had a big $10 million contract down in Washington, D.C., because I was a federal contractor from the FEMA. And I was the only person of color in the room, but I was the prime. And none of the white males would acknowledge me. So I took a bag of peanuts, sat in the corner, and they went around the room, introduced themselves, and, they just decided I was nobody. So you have to be comfortable in your own skin, because you can't lead with, I'm a person of color. That will just send all kinds of craziness, especially if you're in commercial, and I'm heavy commercial. So I sat there and I'm eating my peanuts, and all of a sudden the gentleman said, well, who are you? I'm your boss. And I got to tell you, they just like, everybody's mouth just kind of hit the table, because I can go in quietly, because they already see I'm Black. They already can see I'm a woman. So I don't have to sell them on that. I need them to get comfortable. Are you done with that? Let's get over it. Let's go forward. What's the agenda? So that's what I had to get comfortable with, because I was called every name there was in the book in the early days. And the day that I got over it was when I let that be somebody else's stuff. And it's not about my color or me being female. Did I bring the best product to my client? Are they going to have the best experience that I can give them in construction? Because it's construction. It goes up, down, sideways, changes, etc. And I think that's why I'm sought after around the country to speak to that, so that we lead from our strengths and not what we think we have to anticipate that they need to know that I'm a woman of color. So hopefully that helps a little bit. And you can always send questions to Sandy if I can be more of assistance to you.
Okay, great. We have a few questions here regarding maybe managing teams. And so here's a question from Corey Mayer on, in the modern world of having virtual or remote teams, what is the most successful way to keep virtual teammates engaged?
I think that's a trial and error for every business or small business that's out there. One, there's going to have to be times that your teams have to all come together because you need the in-person relationships. I believe in it. I know the pandemic blew us all out, but now we're past that. You've got to have those in-person relationships so you can touch it, you can brainstorm, you can do the level setting in person versus virtual, maybe follow up on that. And I always think if there's a great thing to look up, and I'll put it in the chat if you like, look at change management. That is huge today, is change management. And change management means how are you going to formulate and design, whether you're doing it virtual or in person, so that you can move the agenda forward at all times. Now, most engineers in the field are used to working in trailers. So, it's already a gift that they can work in the field or they can work in corporate office. So I don't think it's a big lift, but you have to set the boundaries, you have to set the intentionality and what that scope is for each and one of your players. And you want to interview people who you like. They don't have to be the superstar, because sometimes your superstars have arrogance that will turn off the rest of the team or slow down the processes where you want to go. So virtual, make sure it's clear, it's concise. In person, you have to do, I think, level setting in person. That's what I did with my team. And then the third piece would be to be very clear and intentional about what objectives you need to create each and every week, because that's important, because that's how you bring in new business, that's how you keep existing business, and that's how you keep to have redundant business from clients that you've worked with over time.
Great. So this is a question from Ciara Gonzalez, and it has to do maybe more with working specifically in design and construction. So what strategies do you find most effective for fostering collaboration between design and construction teams to ensure that innovative concepts are realized within practical constraints?
Goodness, that's a big question. Well, I mean, I don't think that you can't have construction without design. You just can't have it. So I'm going to just answer it this way. Your partners will make your opportunity to bid a project that the customer is going to love. That's your goal with your right design team and your right construction team. So it will behoove you, and a lot of people you're going to meet is, if you're in school, I'm not sure what the audience is today, is to start building those alliances right now. Judy and John are in design, Bob and Sally are in construction management, because eventually they have to collaborate. I just finished Terminal A, and if you don't know about Terminal A here in Newark, it's a winning airport, and it was based on design and construction. And it turned out to be a fabulous collaboration. So you can't do one without the other, or else you just have a shell and I give you a white box and give me my check, I'm out. So I need that designer to help me to now give the customer the next level of experience, so that they know that they now are complete, because they don't want to be bothered with the minutia. So that's why you will never be design without construction, or construction without a good design team behind you, or with you, or side by side, or joint venture, whatever the process may call for.
And I feel like, that ties into what you've said too about relationships and building relationships. So lots of good information there. So several students have asked questions related to technologies and industry. And so Here's one from Nathaniel Padilla on what has been the most transformative piece of technology in your experience?
Transformative? I don't know about transformative, because right now we're constantly being inundated with updates in construction. I love Procore. I don't know if anybody knows what Procore is, but I love Procore because it's a collaboration based on the question we just had. You know, I can have real time with the architect, the design team, the field, all in one spot. And we can be live every single day. And Procore is advancing their best practices as we go forward, as we speak today. I think that's a tremendous tool. And I have to tell you, I've been really taking some classes myself on AI, ChatGPT for designs. And that's going to be huge in our industry. That's going to be so huge in that industry. And the other technology that I really, really love, and I think is going to be for sustainable energy, and Susan, you probably can answer to this as well, is that what kind of concrete are we going to be using in the next 5 to 10 years? So all of that data is being worked out right now so that we can have a better packaging and not use so much of the concrete that we know today. That's going to evolve, and it's already evolved, especially in the Midwest, not so much in New York area yet. So you will be on the cusp of always finding out the trends. That's why you have to go to these industry meetings. You have to talk to the industry leaders, because they're going to tell you what's next, which is coming out maybe 3 to 5 years from now. And you want to be ready for that 3 to 5 year term. So there's a lot of technology product out there. Depends on what your discipline is that you would use to move you forward. But AI, ChatGPT in construction is going to be huge. It's already huge. It's already huge.
All right. Well, that ties in with a question that Roger Chu had, which was, how do you see AI playing a role in the construction industry? And you mentioned ChatGPT. Do you see AI having a role in other aspects of AI coming into the construction industry?
I think AI is going to be so transformative for our industry that it's going to be something that I can't even articulate in a big way. What AI does is take a 30-hour process and bring it down to an hour. Think about that.
Mm-hmm.
A 30-hour process eventually can be done in an hour. That's huge, because remember, we do everything, you know, the longhand way or the shorthand way. ChatGPT will be able to check your numbers. You know, when you're putting a cost analysis together, you know, to submit with your bid. And then you say, hey, ChatGPT, you know, all you have to do is give it the data and it'll come back. Nope, nope, nope. You're off by a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch, or, you know, you need to look this, that. That's what AI is going to do for our industry. And think about that time savings. And then when you do get in your brainstorm or your brain bar meetings, you could just really talk about the data. And at that point, that's where you spend your 30 hours on, to make sure that we're on the right page, especially if you're doing a $30 or $40 million project. So I love it. You have to be mindful that you understand it. You're not just doing it and you didn't understand it, because if you don't understand it, then it could spit out data for you that has no relevance to what you're trying to accomplish. So it's a due diligence to study it, understand it. So when it does start coming your way, you're prepared to answer the questions on a dime's notice.
Okay. So kind of in that vein, meaning things are different now than they were 10, 20, 30 years ago. So Al Ribeiro had a question. If you were starting your entrepreneurial journey in today's environment, are there different strategies you would take to start and scale up your business?
Oh, I would run and stick my head in the sand. No. Sorry, I had to just have a little fun with that one. What would I do differently? I would have maybe convinced my partners to stay longer. I would have did a lot more homework up front, because I'm bootstrap kind of business that grew. I would have understand, like in the Northeast, we're big on unions here, and because there's a lot of abstract things that we haven't even talked about. Texas may be different, or wherever you are in the country, didn't understand the political climate of running a business. And I would have probably had a budget to hire a business development person besides me to be out there so I could focus on growing and scaling the business. I tried to do too much myself in the very beginning. And that cost me some time. So if you could take the time to plan out who do you need on your team, and this is where ChatGPT can be really big, who needs to be on your team, even if you want to be a 4 or 5 person crew, that brings that experience to the table right away. So you're not running around trying to take the garbage out, fix the lights, run the business, be on the job site, talk to business development people all over the place. That's what I would do differently. I would better land people in my seats on my bus in my business. I would have done that differently. I went into aspirational versus practical. I would have combined that better.
Okay. So continuing on the vein of starting, business, Megan Doty has a question. How did you get the money to become an entrepreneur when materials and equipment are expensive? More specifically, how did you start a business?
Well, I started the business with only $2,500, but there was a big $100 million project coming into New Jersey. I leveraged the community. I leveraged the relationships so I could be on that project. I only started with $2,500. Now, I don't know if you could do that today. I don't think so. Startup capital is really fierce today. But what I would do, I would always look at where do you want to go? And then get you a good executive coach to run at that by before you just go out there and start a business. Because just right now, I started a 3rd business and I got a notice today, they're already looking for taxation. Already. I just went into place 6 months ago. So you're going to have somebody experienced to talk to you, to guide, and you can run things back. I call it the kitchen cabinet crew because I have a kitchen cabinet crew. Second, I made really good friends with my accountant who introduced me to great bankers because I needed that line of credit. So I was able to get my first $1 million line of credit, which was a lifesaver for me because, as you know, they say they'll pay in 30 days, but they weren't paying me for 60, 90, sometimes 120 days. And how do you survive that? Third, I stayed very nimble in the beginning. It's nothing like having a $10 million contract and your internal rate of return is about 18%. And meantime, you forgot about all the other auxiliary expenses that have to come out of that. So one, you've got to get that access to capital as soon as you can. Today's market, prices are fluctuating all over the place because supply chains are what they are. The next one is that who's your kitchen cabinet, somebody that's smarter than you and be okay with constructive feedback. I've never met so many people like, well, listen, I have an engineer degree and I know what I'm doing. Okay, bye-bye. They're not open and they're not coachable. So you go ahead and try that and I'll talk to you in a couple of years because you've got to have that person that can navigate you through the flooded waters and when you're having a good time and they can say, job well done. So that's what you have to do. Most people don't. That's why most businesses start, they fail within the first 5 years. They fail. They just fail. So if you can make it past the 7-year mark, you're well on your way to being in a scale business or you're just comfortable being a boutique business. And that's the morning glory of that.
Great. Do you have any, here's a question from Nikita Mandahar. Do you have any insights on whether there has been an increase or decrease in the trend of women entrepreneurs in the design and construction industry compared to previous decades?
Well, previous decades, we didn't have any women. So I say this is the most we've had, I say in the last 10 years, women going into design and construction, just the last 10 years. Hopefully that trend will continue. Women still tend to stray away from STEM. I'm not sure why, but they like computer science over design and construction. It's not an easy game for women because you have to think more like the guys a lot of time in order to be successful when you're communicating. But yes, I see far more women now, but they're still going into bioengineering, computer science, not the construction and construction management. One of my interns just graduated. She wants to be a lawyer. So she graduated in environmental engineering, but she wants to be a lawyer. And she wants to work in a law firm that deals with environmental issues. So we made that connection for her internship next year, that she'll work with this law firm in that particular sector. So it really depends. For women, they have to want the tenacity. They have to put in a lot of time. They have to be on job sites in the early days at 6 in the morning in order to really build up your project management and your skill set in order for you to go forward.
Okay. So maybe we've got sort of some final questions here, but here's one I think everyone is probably interested in. So Candace had this question: what is the most effective way to negotiate a salary?
Know your worth. 90% of people don't know their worth. 90% of people will negotiate from down here to get in. If you're a newbie, maybe because you want to get in, but know your worth. I just negotiated with a big developer here in the city, and they wanted something like $400,000 per unit to build out in this 43-story building. And I said, well, we can't do that. So you want to be able to, that's why you have to do your homework before you go into any negotiation. Understand the numbers, understand your climate. And, there was something I learned at Harvard is called, never go below your zone. Know where you want to stop. It's called your zone. So when you know your zone, let them go up and down around the corner, and you got to be comfortable with the noise. Well, why? You're only out of school for 2 years, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but I'm bringing you A, B, C, D, E, F, G. This is why I'm asking for the number. And never settle on the first number. Everybody's willing to negotiate. If they can get you to just accept what they offer, then they're gone, and that's it. You can't come back. It's very hard to come back. I'm coaching someone right now because he wants to go in. I said, no, you haven't heard all of the information. So if you want to negotiate a higher salary or you want to negotiate a greater price, now bidding is very different now. Bidding is bidding. We go in, we bid a number. Hopefully we're the lowest bus. We might have to sharpen our pencil, but we still have to be at that zone. I mean, if you're charging me like $40 a square foot and you want me to do it for 20, that's not going to happen. I have to walk away and leave that alone. A lot of failure comes because people say, well, maybe I can make it work and make it up on change orders. No. That's a hope. That's not a destination. So you want to really understand how to know what your zone is. Be very, very intentional about, hey, this is why we need to be at this number. And yet you work out with your accountant, your CFO, or somebody that's helping you. They might be a fractional CFO. And you know where you need to be because you need to make a certain profit every year. The client doesn't know, but you know. So stick to it. Don't let it go. Negotiate. And if you're not good at negotiating, take some classes in negotiating.
Mm-hmm. Okay. We're down to our last question here. So how about, I'm just going to make it open-ended. We have lots of questions, but basically, closing suggestions for anyone who's thinking of going into or starting their own business. What would be your closing words of wisdom to folks?
First reason, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? Be very clear on why you want to do it. It's not for the faint of heart, running your own business. That's number one. Number two, how are you going to serve your community through this entrepreneurship? You want to make sure you understand that. Number 3, you have to have continuous learning. There is no one stop and you're done. Because we're in such a fast-moving environment, what you were relevant on Monday may be out of step by Friday. So you will always be in a continuous learning loop. 4, work under budget with all of your expenditures so that you can continue to grow the pot so you can go to the next level. Because if you start spending as you're making money on one job and the other one starts to go and dips up and down, that could be very headachy for you down the road. And I say the last thing is that you've got to have a lot of grit, you've got to have a lot of integrity, and you have to have a lot of perseverance. Because it's very lonely at the top once you become the CEO of your own organization. So you have to be able to trust your gut as well as your knowledge in order to make your dream and the passion that you want as an entrepreneur come true.
Well, fantastic, Marjorie. Very inspirational. I am it was just so fun to hear you talk and hear your enjoyment for what you're doing. So we do have a winner scholarship winner, and once again, sorry, we weren't able to get to everyone's questions, but hopefully we got the flavor of most all of your questions. But our winner today for the scholarship is Daisy Rosas from Oklahoma State University. So congratulations, Daisy.
Congratulations, Daisy.
So before we say goodnight, we would like to say a special thank you to our sponsors, the University of Florida Rinker School of Construction, Arizona State University Del E. Webb School of Construction, and the University of Colorado at Boulder Construction Engineering and Management Program. And then, of course, thank you to Marjorie Perry, our speaker, who was willing to sit here and let me fire off questions to her for the past hour. I look forward to seeing all of you students at our next Ask Me Anything, which will be October 22nd. And thank you all, and good night.
Good night.